Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be starting our new unit on the Gilded Age. And I understand probably at this point, you probably don't know what that is. But I had you guys do a little Jamboard activity, kind of guessing that with what it means. So hopefully you kind of have some hints. But ultimately, this is a long unit, guys. This is going to last for the whole month of October. A lot of things going on. So some questions that I kind of want you guys thinking about as we are moving along through the unit is, how does technology change during this time, and how does it influence people's lives? How does it make people's lives easier? How does it make the rise of businesses easier? So think about that as we move along. We're big business leaders, robber barons, or captains of industry. Again, you probably don't know what that means, but think of context clues. Robber baron. Does that sound good to you? Does it sound like a nice guy? I doubt it. Captain of industry sounds like a superhero, so that might be a good thing. So keep in mind, as we start talking about the early business leaders in the United States, think about them. Well, were they, the bad guys, or were they possibly the good guys, or is the answer maybe somewhere in the middle? So think about that as we, move forward. Is America truly the land of opportunity? Tough question, but think about that as we move forward. And then, can reform movements improve American society and politics? So those are four key essential questions that I want you guys to think about over the next month as we move along. All right, so Mark Twain, you probably have heard of him before. You probably read some of his things in maybe English classes in the past. He was very influential during this time. One of the things that he said is, what is the chief end of man? Is it to get rich? And in what way? Dishonesty if we can, honestly if we must. So again, it's kind of a thought-provoking question. Think about how some of these men, and even to this very day, how you make your money. Should there be any rules? If you're dishonest, is it all fair game to make your money, or is that something that's not honorable? Again, that's more of a personal opinion kind of question. So anyway, all right, so what is the Gilded Age? The Gilded Age is a time period in U.S. history where things look great from the outside, but they were awful and horrible on the inside. So, for instance, as we'll talk about, America was a tale of two stories here. You had the extreme rich, so as you see in this picture down here, these huge mansions. So on the outside, if you were going up in these beautiful neighborhoods, you saw these big skyscrapers going into these cities. America looked like it had a lot of going for it. It was very rich. You had a lot of rich individuals at this time. You had skyscrapers that were starting to form, these huge, tall buildings in cities that were starting to form. So America, really from the outside perspective, did seem like the land of opportunity and was extremely rich. But on the flip side, that's not truly, what the story truly showed. Most Americans didn't live that rich lifestyle. Most Americans lived just scraping by. So for the reality of most Americans, see this picture of where my cursor is, this was what life was like in some of the slums, in some of the inner city areas where you have dirt piling up, mud piles, you have garbage everywhere, you have these buildings that were very shoddy and not really made very properly or made strong. So that's how most Americans lived. So that's why so what does gilded mean? Gilded means, like, if you ever saw like a coin. Okay, so you had a coin. On the outside of the coin is all gold. So if you were to look at it, like, oh, this is awesome. This is a gold coin. But if you were to take something and start scraping away the top, it's not really gold. What's underneath is a worthless piece of metal. That's basically so the term gilded, that's what gilded means. So why is this time period called the Gilded Age? Well, for that reason. If you were to really scrape away the layers of America, most Americans didn't live that rich lifestyle. It was very deceiving. So who coined the term Gilded Age? It was Mark Twain. Again, going back to Mark Twain again. He coined this era the Gilded Age. So he also said it was the best of times, yet the worst of times. So also, here's another way to think about it. Think of it as like Christmas morning. You wake up, you go, and you see this beautiful gift. It's wrapped all beautiful. It has nice ribbons on it. You're like, man, I'm going to open up this present. So you open it up, and what's inside? A big lump of poo. That's basically what this era is. Outside is beautiful, wrapping, ribbons, glitter, decorations, you name it. But on the inside, it's worthless. So it's ultimately kind of what I want you guys to think about, kind of what the Gilded Age means. It's, again, outside technology, some higher class people, but most Americans aren't living that way. So there's a lot of issues and a lot of problems going on the inside of America. All right. So that's Gilded Age. So that's what you need to know. You should be writing this down in your guided notes that I gave you. So kind of showing you guys, Newport was an area in Rhode Island, in the Delaware area, where a lot of the rich industrialists, the rich people lived. This was mostly their summer homes. This was a very famous location, famous place right along the Hudson River, that showed the wealth of our country. Anybody who was anybody at this time, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, had homes, summer homes, just like this. So that shows the extreme wealth of this time. See this beautiful on the inside, gold plated everywhere, the expensive art, carpet, rugs, you name it. So these people were living very extravagant lifestyles. All right. So with the Gilded Age. So one of the things that's kind of that was going on during the Gilded Age was something called the Industrial Revolution. Now, last year in Global Issues, you should have learned about this. The first Industrial Revolution took place in England. And then from there, it began spreading to other areas. More specifically, in this case, it'll come to the United States in the middle to late 1800s. So what does Industrial Revolution mean? And you guys did this on your Jamboards. You guys saw some pictures of this. But industrial revolution means it's a process of changing from an agrarian. What does agrarian mean? It means farming. So you're changing from a farming economy to an industrial economy where you're mass producing goods in factories. Machines are mass producing goods. So that's all the industrial revolution is. You're using machines, you're using technology to mass produce products. You aren't making things as this picture shows, you aren't making things by hand anymore. You're mass producing them. So what does that do? Well, it allows big businesses to grow, and it's going to cause the price of products. So there's more made of it. It's going to cause prices to go down. So we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But all this really started happening around the Civil War, after the Civil War, when we began truly starting to industrialize, become a lot more advanced. All right, so who were some of the winners and losers during this time? Losers might sound like a weird term, but who was this not good for during this time? So the winners, if you were an industrialist, somebody who was investing money in opening up, starting your own business in a factory, it was a good time. Business was booming. There was high demand for steel, high demand for other things, where you can mass produce and make lots and lots and lots and lots of money. And we'll go more into some of that, how also some of the system was rigged for those people as well. But if you're a politician too, politicians, as we'll learn about, there was very little rules back then, very little oversight. Again, think back then, there was no cell phones and things of that nature. So a lot of corruption happened during this time. And then obviously, if you were the rich, same thing. The system was rigged in your favor if you were somebody who was rich back then. And then, the loser of this time, people who didn't fare too well, was just the average person, like you and me, the average Joe, somebody who was the average worker. Again, being taken advantage of, workers being taken advantage of during this time. The system was not favoring you. Again, worker as well as immigrants. It was a very difficult time for, again, most people, 97% of people fit into this category back then. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, so what caused the Gilded Age? What caused industrialization? What caused the Gilded Age? There's an acronym, PENT, P-E-N-T, as you see up here. Again, right, you should be writing this down in your guided notes. So the P stands for population increase. So one thing that led to reason why the United States was able to industrialize was because of the population. The population of the United States began to increase. Well, why? Because of slaves, because of immigrants that were coming to our country. We had an abundance of workers that were cheap. So these rich entrepreneurs who were starting these factories can pay their workers virtually nothing and pocket all the profits. So in order to industrialize, you need a huge population for that. E in Penn stands for entrepreneurs. You have people out there who are rich, who are willing to invest money and take risks. So keep this in mind for next week or the week after. We talk about Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Cornelius Vanderbilt, on how they invested, took a lot of risk in their industries to start these great industries at this time that allowed America to grow. But they also took advantage of government-friendly deals too. Again, as I said before, the system was kind of in their favor. The third thing is N, natural resources. We had the United States had an abundance of natural resources, coal and water, timber, you name it, to be able to fuel industrialization. In factories, you need fuel. So we had plenty of that in order to do it. And then the T in Penn stands for technology. Steel, steam engine. This is an era of technological advances. All right, so again, in your guided notes, almost done. Some inventors and inventions during this time. You had Thomas Edison. As you guys probably all heard of him before. He invented the light bulb, or perfected the light bulb in 1880 in motion picture. He organized power plants, built to power cities. He will establish the first research lab in Menlo Park that will dedicate themselves to researching and trying to develop new technologies. But the light bulb is going to be vital, guys. I mean, now you can work at night. If you have a light bulb, you can work at night now. So think about how much you're able to produce now. If you can produce goods in the factories in the day and night, you're able to produce a lot more. So if you have more products, you sell more goods, you make more money, right? So that's a game changer. Alexander Graham Bell, he invented the telephone. Again, huge game changer in 1876, and how people communicate, especially in business too, or just in our everyday lives, and how much that's going to be a game changer too. Now businesses can grow because now you can call a telephone and place orders for things. Henry Ford will develop the first assembly line, but also the first car. Henry Ford vehicles. So there you go. So think about how that's going to establish more transportation goods, right? Now you can transport goods on trucks and deliver them both near and far. But he also had the first assembly line, as we'll talk more about later next week. George Eastman developed the first camera for picture. So now you can advertise your goods in newspapers. You can take pictures of your products, put it in newspapers, and advertise your product to sell to more mass people. Samuel Morse was the telegraph. When the telephone became more popular, this is kind of replaced the telegraph. But telegraph was kind of the first means to communicate long distance with people, and especially for businesses. The Wright brothers, airplanes, again, game changer for how we travel, how we go from one point to another. Business, now you can travel internationally and sell your products internationally. Chris Scholes, the typewriter, now you can type things a lot faster, contracts and business things and that nature. And then Marconi was the first radio. So again, as you see, the inventors and inventions during this time are going to allow these businesses to operate and run more smoothly and allow them to expand. So that's very, very, very vital for the startup of our country. So as you guys see here, steel, or in terms of one other thing, in terms of here's the picture of the United States. All this red here is all railroads. The blue is canals. So think about too, most of the eastern part of the United States was all, for the most part, linked up railroad wise. Then you see the next step, as America began to grow, we started to expand. Now notice, here's before, notice it stops at St. Louis. Now look at it starting to expand. This is now linked up from the east to the west in San Francisco, railroad going there. Now look at it. Goods can travel now really anywhere in the country, no problem in terms of railroads. So you see, as America began to grow, as inventions began to expand, look at our railroad networks and our ways to travel become a lot more intricate. This is just a kind of railroad built after the Civil War, that will really link the country and will provide more jobs for people as well. All right, so anyway, that's it for today. That's it for the lecture. Again, make sure you're writing this all in your guided notes. You get to pause, go back in this. All right, so anyway, see you guys next time.